You're listening to the Christian Post Daily Podcast. Today is Monday, July 27th. Pastor Robert Jeffress's broadcast ministry has hit a major digital milestone. The Pathway to Victory YouTube channel has surpassed 1 million subscribers, earning YouTube's Gold Creator Award. Jeffress, who leads the 16,000-member First Baptist Dallas, called the channel's launch an amazing opportunity to share the gospel through our Bible teaching ministry, adding, "We're grateful for the response. We were late to YouTube, but by God's grace, we're making up for lost time." The channel launched in October 2024 with roughly 600 uploaded videos, some drawing more than 1 million views. Jeffress stressed that the end goal is not the number of subscribers, it's all about life change, noting a strong older core audience and a younger discovery audience. Pathway to Victory, founded in 1996, airs on 900 radio stations and won National Religious Broadcaster's 2025 Radio Program of the Year. A former pastor is suing OpenAI and CEO Sam Altman, claiming the company's chatbot nearly cost him his life. 55-year-old Scott Winters, who led congregations in Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, filed a 62-page complaint in San Francisco County Superior Court, alleging ChatGPT gave him inaccurate medical advice for weeks. According to the suit, hours before Winters suffered a massive pulmonary embolism in July 2025, the chatbot told him his symptoms were not something dangerous. Winter says, "Not only did I nearly die, but I also lost my job, my career, my ministry, my home, everything." OpenAI spokesperson Drew Pusateri responded that ChatGPT is not a doctor and should never be used as a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. Attorneys accuse OpenAI of reckless profit-seeking. Israel is gearing up for what officials call a landmark moment for global Christianity, the 2000th anniversary of Jesus' baptism in 2030. Foreign Minister Gideon Sayar has established a dedicated working group headed by Ambassador George Deek, Israel's special envoy to the Christian world and himself an Orthodox Christian, to deepen dialogue with churches and prepare for the arrival of millions of Christian pilgrims. Sayar said, "Strengthening our relationship with the Christian world and ensuring that the Holy Land remains accessible to the millions of believers who wish to visit are among Israel's highest priorities, pledging to safeguard freedom of worship for all faiths." Neighboring Jordan is also preparing its side of the traditional site, Al-Magtas, with King Abdullah II overseeing infrastructure upgrades. A British government minister says the UK's nursing regulator must overhaul its practices after a Christian nurse was cleared in a dispute over transgender pronouns. Jennifer Mell was suspended after being accused of misgendering a male patient by using biologically accurate pronouns. She was cleared by her employer but faced a prolonged Nursing and Midwifery Council investigation before being told she had no case to answer. Health Minister Karen Smith wrote to Mel saying the government takes the council's performance very seriously and that it must continue to deliver a significant and sustained improvement in performance, particularly in relation to fitness to practice processes. Mel said she was referred to my regulator as if I posed some kind of risk to the public. Christian Legal Center Chief Andrea Williams is demanding binding national guidance so nurses cannot be compelled to use preferred pronouns. Texas's race for U.S. Senate is heating up over artificial intelligence as Democratic nominee James Talarico calls for a new regulatory framework for data centers. At a press conference in downtown Austin Wednesday, the state representative demanded safeguards on water use, electricity demand, and community impact, saying large energy users should fund infrastructure upgrades rather than pass costs to consumers. Data centers are jacking up utility bills across the state of Texas, Talarico said. Billionaire-backed politicians are giving sweetheart tax deals to giant AI companies and then sticking us with the bill. He pointed to an estimated $3.2 billion in tax breaks. Rival Ken Paxton counters that America cannot lose the AI race with China, echoing President Trump, who told tech leaders, "You have to convince your community. You can't fight it." Texas has roughly 300 operating data centers, with more than 100 more planned. A Louisiana pastor is facing up to 2 decades behind bars after a federal jury found him guilty of draining hundreds of thousands of dollars from his own congregation. U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Louisiana, David Corsell, announced that 56-year-old Dale Sanders of Kenner was convicted on 25 counts of wire fraud, access device fraud, and obstruction of a federal investigation following a 5-day trial. Prosecutors say Sanders utilized Church A's debit card for unauthorized personal transactions and received cash, goods, and services totaling over $340,000 that he was not entitled to. spending the money on gambling, dining, and living expenses. Sanders, who pastors churches in New Orleans and Metairie, had denied wrongdoing, blaming a former finance manager and insisting, "What I'm being accused of is something I have never done." Sentencing is set for October 13th. The White House is publicly backing WNBA star Sophie Cunningham after the Indiana Fever guard faced a wave of criticism for opposing men competing in women's sports. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said Thursday that while President Trump hasn't yet reached out to the 29-year-old Christian athlete, the administration stands with her. "This is something the president feels strongly about as well, and the American people do too, that men should not be playing in women's sports," Leavitt said, calling the backlash from Democrats and left-wing figures astonishing and an 80-20 issue. Cunningham, who was rebaptized earlier this year, told ESPN she doesn't hate transgender people, but wants to protect young girls in a locker room. Mocked as MAGA Barbie, she responded, "I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense." Thank you for listening to the Christian Post Daily Podcast. We encourage you to follow the show in your podcast player of choice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or third-party podcast players like Overcast and Pocket Casts. You can also download the Edifi app for free and listen to all the podcasts on the Edifi network by clicking the link in today's podcast show notes. We would also appreciate a 5-star rating in Apple Podcasts and Spotify to help us reach a wider audience with the Christian Post Daily Podcast. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter and get the top headlines delivered to your inbox by clicking that link in the show notes as well. Thank you again for listening to the Christian Post Daily Podcast.